Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about kind of a controversial subject, but I knew it was a video that I was going to have to get around to eventually, so I figured I would get it over with right towards the beginning. And that topic is going to be abortion. Now, just a quick disclaimer, as this is going to be from the perspective of somebody who is pro-life, and I just want to put it out there that this is in no way meant to be judging or demonizing anybody who has had an abortion in the past, so please don't take it that way. I'm not trying to offend anybody who might have made that choice in the past. I'm just simply stating my opinion on how I feel about the matter itself. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to just talk about a little bit why I feel adamantly about the fact that I am a pro-lifer. So to me, what it really comes down to, every single argument about abortion, or what about this situation, what about this situation, it all really depends on the core belief of whether or not you think of it as a life or as not of a life. That's really what it all boils down to. If you don't think of it as a life, if you think it's just a fetus, it's just a bunch of cells, then of course you're going to be pro-choice. Why not get an abortion? It doesn't matter. It's not a life anyways. So whether it's because you just don't feel like having a baby, or the condom broke, or you decide you want to wait till later, whatever the reason is, why not just get an abortion? Of course, if you don't think it's a life. And if you do think of it as a life, obviously it's the opposite. There's very limited circumstances that most people would think that it is okay to have an abortion, because they do see it as the terminating of a life, not just, getting rid of a fetus or cells that's in your body. They think of it as actually terminating a life. And that's the camp that I fall under. I do see it as a life, no matter how far along. A baby has a heartbeat at 6 weeks of pregnancy. So to me, of course that's a life. If a baby has a heartbeat, if there is blood pumping through it and it is keeping it alive, then how can that not be a life? And then if we go even further through the pregnancy, when a baby is kicking, when you can feel the baby moving around inside you, to me, of course that's a life. There's no disputing whether or not that is a life or not. To me, it absolutely is, and I believe that all life has value. So a lot of the main arguments for the pro-choice movement, they don't really work if you're looking at it from the perspective of believing that it is truly a life. Like, people will say, oh, well, it's a woman's body, a woman gets to choose what she does with her body. Well, if you're saying that, yes, you think it's a life, then it's not really just her body. It's another life that is inside of her body, of course, but it's another life. It's not her life. So she doesn't have the right to take away that life from another human being. And it's kind of weird when I hear arguments from the pro-choice side, because the people are always talking about, oh, well, if a girl is 16 years old and she made a mistake, or the father left her, or whatever, they make all these reasons or excuses. But it's if you don't think that if you don't think of the fetus as a life anyways, then what's the point of making up all the excuses? Why not just you don't have to say, oh, well, what about this 16-year-old girl? Really, if you don't think of it as a life, you should think of abortion as birth control. Really, if it's just cells inside your body that you're getting rid of, then who cares? So the fact that they always come up with these excuses or these reasons, or what about this situation, what about this situation, kind of shows me that they do in a way kind of see that it's wrong in a sense. Because they wouldn't be having to come up with these excuses again. They would just say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just a fetus, it's just cells inside your body, who cares? So, I don't know. So it seems to me that even people on the pro-choice side tend to have some sort of feeling that maybe it is wrong to a certain extent. Now, the one time I do agree with abortion is, and the only time I agree with abortion, is if the mother's health is at risk, or her life is at risk. Because then, of course, you have a right to protect your own life. It's the same thing with murder. Obviously, you can't murder somebody, but if you're doing it to protect your own life, then it's self-defense, and you're allowed to do that to protect your own life. So it's the same thing with the pregnancy. Yeah, I think of it as a life, but if there's a chance that giving birth or going through that pregnancy is going to cause you to lose your life, then you absolutely have the choice to say, no, I'm going to defend my own life, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to choose to have an abortion to make sure that my life is safe. So I do agree with abortion in that sense. But that's it. That's really the only situation that I can think that. And I know what a lot of you are going to say, and a lot of you are probably thinking, well, what about if the woman gets raped? Now, and I know this is where I'm going to lose a lot of you, because this is not the most popular opinion, even from the pro-lifers, but it's my opinion, so I'm going to give it. To me, it goes back to this, it's the same thing. If you think of it as a life, because this is this is what I actually kind of don't understand. To me, it's almost worse in a way if you're pro-life except for in cases of rape, because if you're willing to admit that yes, it is a life, this is why you're pro-life, yes, it's a life, yes, that life has value, and no, I don't agree for this baby to be aborted for whatever reason, except for rape, that doesn't make sense to me, because you're willing to admit that it is a life and it does have value. Why is the value of that life any less based off of the circumstances of which it was created? It's not the baby's fault that it was conceived out of rape. The baby has done nothing. So, I mean, to say yes, it has life, and you don't agree with abortion ever, except for this one situation, that doesn't make sense to me. It's almost even worse, because at least the pro-choice people, they don't see it as a life. They think, oh, it's just cells, it's just whatever, it's not really a life, it doesn't have value. The pro-choice people don't see it as a life. So they think, of course, if a woman's raped, of course she should get an abortion. And that makes sense to me, coming from the perspective of someone who doesn't see it as a life, why they would think that. But coming from the perspective of somebody who does see it as a life, that's where it kind of gets a little weird. It's like, why would you think that it's okay in that specific circumstance? Because if you're willing to admit that it is a life, then there should be no situation that you think it would be okay to abort that baby, except for the mother's life is at risk, like I said earlier, for self-defense. But other than that, I mean, what has the baby done? And I watched this documentary, I can't think of what the name of it is, but it was a really good documentary about people who were conceived out of rape, like who are adults now, whose mother was raped, who choose to keep the baby, or chose to give the baby up for adoption, whatever the circumstances, and you know, kind of showed the lives that they lived. And it was really interesting because those people were talking about how offensive it is when they hear the whole argument of, oh, I'm pro-life except for cases of rape. Because to them, they say, well, why is my life any less valuable just because of how I was conceived? I mean, these are adults now, they have their own kids, they have their own lives, and you're basically saying to them, like, oh, well, it would have been okay for you to have been aborted, but not anybody else. Just you, because of the circumstance in which you were conceived. That's extremely offensive to them. I mean, I can see why they would find that offensive. You're basically saying that their life doesn't have value. And they make it clear in the video that their life does have value. And sure, they might have some, problems, might have to see therapy, they might have, psychological, some sort of damage from knowing that they were conceived out of rape, but that doesn't mean they wish they had never been born instead. Those people don't say, oh yeah, I wish I had never been born, or, they're not suicidal. I mean, just because they have problems doesn't mean they're not happy to be alive. Like, that's the whole thing with me. Life, to me, is the biggest gift on the world. So to take that away from somebody doesn't seem right to me no matter what. I mean, the odds of being here on the Earth right now, I mean, think about all the planets, all the galaxies, I mean, the expansive universe. You think about how it's unimaginable how huge the universe that we live in is. And then you start getting down to, the process of getting pregnant and the, sperm cells, and the odds of you being here right now are 1 in a number that you couldn't even imagine. So to then have that happen, to have a baby be conceived, and then say, oh, for whatever reason I don't want this baby, and then take that away from them, after the astronomical odds it took for this baby to come into this world, and then to take that away from them before they even have a chance at life. To me, that's immoral and unacceptable. And again, I'm not judging anybody who's made that decision. If you've had an abortion in the past, I'm not one to judge or demonize or say, oh, you're a terrible person, you're this or you're that. But I do see it as something that a person shouldn't do. I do see it as immoral. I do see it as taking a life, and will never be something that is acceptable to me. Taking another life. Now, I thought about naming this video "Abortion is Murder" instead of "Abortion is Wrong," but I didn't want to imply that someone who gets an abortion is equivalent to somebody who murders somebody, because I don't believe that. I absolutely don't believe that. Because the reason, if you're murdering somebody, obviously it's a life, it's an adult person, or a kid or whatever. You're acknowledging that it's a life. You do it maliciously, purposely to end that life, violently, for whatever reason. You decide that you're going to kill this person and you murder them. Most of these people who have had abortions, on the other hand, they don't see it as a life that they're taking. So it's not a malicious attack, because they think they don't think that they're ending a life. I mean, I do. I think they are ending a life. But it's about intention. They're not maliciously trying to end a life because they don't see it that way. So I in no way would ever say that abortion is equal to murder, in the sense of in a criminal sense. But I do think in the sense of, terminating one life and terminating one life, it is equal in the sense that you're ending a life. So abortion is murder. I just didn't think would fit as a title, because it is, but at the same time, abortion is murder, but someone who gets an abortion and a murderer are not equal to me, not even close. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that too. So that's basically it. I know a lot of you aren't going to agree, and that's totally fine, but if you want to comment below, please keep it civilized. Don't say I'm a sexist, or I hate women, or just because I'm a man, I'm not allowed to have an opinion on this. Don't bother saying anything that's obviously ridiculous. If you want to say something intelligent, or give me a reason why you think I could be wrong, or why you think pro-choice is the better route to go, and why you think abortion is okay, for whatever reason. Feel free to leave a comment below. I'll respond if it's if it's a civil comment. I'll respond to it. And I know a lot of you are going to focus on the rape, because I know even a lot of pro-lifers are pro-life except for cases of rape. So I understand I'm in the minority, not just being pro-life, but I'm also in the minority specifically for being pro-life even in the case of rape. And I know that's going to bother a lot of people. People are going to say, "Oh, how dare you, this woman was raped, how dare," and I hate it when people act like, since I'm pro-life in the case of rape, that I'm minimizing rape. I hate when people say that, because of course rape is a horrific, horrible crime. Of course I'm against rape. Of course I think if somebody rapes somebody, they should go to jail for an extremely long time and be held accountable for the actions that they made. And I understand that it's not the woman's fault that she is now pregnant and has to go through 9 months of pregnancy or 18 years of raising a child, well, even more than 18 years if they choose to keep the baby. I understand that, but that's why rape is such a horrible crime. That's the whole point. I know this horrible thing could happen to a woman who is raped. I know she might have to go through this horrible situation where she has a baby, she doesn't know what to do with it, she doesn't want it. I know all those things. That's why rape is such a horrible thing. It's like when people say, "Oh, just because she's raped, she has to go through this." Yeah, it's like when somebody murders somebody. You don't say, "Oh, just because she wanted to murder you, she should have to lose her life." That's murder. That's why it's a horrible thing. That's why it's a crime. It's because you just took away somebody's life. Just why rape is such a horrible crime. Not only are you, sexually violating them, but you can also lead to other consequences, like an unwanted pregnancy. So it's a horrific crime just as well. And it's horrible crimes to have consequences. That's why they're crimes. So I'm no way minimalizing rape. I'm not trying to say that it's the woman's fault, and this is another reason I would never judge also the woman who was a victim of rape who chose to have an abortion, although I think it's wrong, and I don't think it should be legal, honestly. I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, but I don't really care. That's what I believe. I don't think abortion should be legal in any circumstance unless the woman's life is at risk. But I don't say that to try to try and judge anybody who has done that. I've done a lot of things that I don't think people should do. I've done myself. So I'm not judging. Everybody does things that they shouldn't do. I don't know. I go back and forth. I definitely don't want to judge either way, but I do think I feel pretty adamantly that having an abortion is taking away a life, and it shouldn't be done. And if you like the video, subscribe below. I'll be putting lots of videos out. I'll probably be putting out a lot at a time instead of like once a week. I'll probably do them in bulks because I like to record them all at once. And yeah, that's about it. So I'll see you next time.